Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to set up, we're going to use word problems to set up our own trig problems. So what you need to make sure that you do is always draw a picture. Okay, so you need to be able to understand what the words are. You're going to also label that picture as necessary, decide which trig function to use, and you know when you deal with trig functions, you're dealing with SOHCAHTOA. Okay, and then you set up your proportion, your cross multiply and solve. For this particular note sheet, you're going to be rounding any sides to the nearest tenth, and you're going to be rounding angles to the nearest whole degree. That's whole number. So this first example talks about a road is going uphill on a 5-degree incline. If you've traveled 50 feet horizontally, how far have you traveled vertically? Well, roads normally tend to sort of start off going straight. And if all of a sudden the road starts going up on an incline of 5 degrees, here's your road. And then the idea is your road is going to end up making the two roads, you can actually make a right triangle out of them if you drop down this line right here. So you really have a right triangle within this picture of a road going straight across, the road going on its incline, and then those two ends meeting to form your right triangle. So it's got a 5-degree incline. The incline is going to be where the two roads starts from going straight to moving up. You've traveled 50 feet on the horizontal, so down here is your 50 feet. You can label this degrees if you want. It wants to know how far you've traveled on the vertical. So just like we always do is we look at the angle that's not the right angle. Here's our 5-degree angle. X is the side opposite it, 50 is the side adjacent to it. With SOHCAHTOA, that ends up being a tangent. So then you set up your trig problem and you say that the tangent of 5 equals x over 50. Feel free to put that as a proportion over 1. And then when you cross multiply and your calculator's in degree mode, all that's happening here is x equals, and again, when you use a calculator, when the calculator opens up the parentheses for the tan 5, you've got to close that parentheses before you multiply it by 50. So tan 5, close parentheses, times 50 to the nearest tenth becomes 4.4 feet. Let's take a look at this next one. An 18-foot ladder leans against a house that stands on level ground. The foot of the ladder is 10 feet from the house. To the nearest degree, find the angle that the foot of the ladder makes with the ground. So I've got a ladder leaning against a house that stands on level ground. So here's my house, and my house is on level ground. I've got a ladder that's leaning against my house. So here's a ladder which is leaning against the house. So the fact that the house is on level ground, there's my right angle. So I do in fact have a right triangle, and that right triangle is right here. So we've got some information. We know that the ladder is 18 feet. So basically this piece is 18 feet. We know that the foot of the ladder is 10 feet from the house. Well, if I'm a person going to be climbing up a ladder, I've got to start from the bottom, or the foot of the ladder. So the foot of the ladder is 10 feet from the house. That's where your 10 would go. Find the angle that the foot of the ladder makes with the ground. That only angle they're talking about could be the one that's right there. So here's our angle that we're referring to, this guy right here. We've got an adjacent side at 10, a hypotenuse at 18. Using our trig functions, we know this is a cosine. So we're looking for the cosine of x to be the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Remember, this is looking for an angle measure, so on your calculator, you're actually typing in the second cosine, and you're going to come out with x being 56 degrees. All right, let's go for the third one. A support wire for a light pole forms an angle of 62 degrees with the ground. If the pole is 60 feet high, how long is the wire? Well, I've got a pole. So here's my pole, and my pole is on the ground. I'm sorry, my pole is level with the ground, I should say. So that means I'm always going to have my right angle right over here. My support wire from the light pole forms an angle of 62 degrees with the ground. Well, the wire has to go from the light pole and anchor at the ground. Okay, so then there's your triangle which is right, that's not what I wanted to do. Did that, I think, yesterday too. There we go. Delete that. Here we go. Okay, so the right triangle is the guy that's right here. We talk about the angle of 62 degrees with the ground and the wire. So that means 62 degrees is down over here. The pole is 60 feet high. So that's that. How long is the wire? Well, that's going to be that piece. So here's your angle measure. 60 is opposite. X happens to be your hypotenuse. So it turns out to be a sine problem. Sine 62 equals 60 over X. Here's where I'm going to do that proportion, because when you cross multiply this guy, you do have a little bit more work to do. So this turns into sine of 62 multiplied by x equals 60. Well, the only way to get x all alone is to divide both sides by sine 62. So in the calculator, you're going to do 60 divided by sine 62, and what comes out is 68. Now, nearest tenth means you need that 0.0. Okay? So on the homework, again, you need to be able to use the word problems to create your own right triangle in order to do the trig. So good luck.